What's up, losers? Today I'm back with some more r/fatlogic shenanigans. Checking out a couple of eyebrow-raising fat acceptance posts, sharing my responses to them, and throwing in a few jokes where I see fit. This is episode 148 in the fatlogic series. And I'm ready to have me timbers shivered by some huge brain takes. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Anyone kind of fed up with the new obsession of buff chicks, like thin, muscular, female-presenting, /identifying people? First off, I think it's ableist, since not everyone is physically able to work out. Second, I think it's classist, since many of us can't afford gym memberships. And it's fatphobic, because they're comparing worth and health to body size. Again, I'm not shocked. Like, for example, I'm a fat person, and easily I can lift 100 pounds. Leg press. Honey, I leg press 280 pounds daily.
Ha ha ha, oh my god, what an embarrassing flex. If I'm interpreting this correctly, which I'm pretty sure I am, this poster is literally bragging about the fact that they can stand on their own 2 feet, weighing 280 pounds as they do. As if that's somehow an achievement. Newsflash. Thin people are able to stand up too. Only we don't generally regard it as a triumph. Because we haven't put on so much weight, that getting out of bed in the morning becomes a Herculean task. At least, not physically haha, and because we're capable of doing stuff that's legitimately athletic, and not just basic human functions. Shocking, I know. As for the main thrust of the post, around so-called buff chicks, and how problematic they are, I can only describe the reasoning being offered as profoundly stupid, like doing something that physically disabled people are unable to, and feeling good about it, is not ableist. For frick's sake, if we followed that logic, pretty much everything could be construed as ableist. Going for a relaxing walk in the park, ableist. Having fun playing sports, ableist. Heck, even basic shit like washing yourself could be considered ableist. Because some disabled people can't wash without assistance. It's a completely nonsensical path to go down. And not one that I have any patience to indulge. As long as you're not disparaging disabled people, or rubbing the disabilities in their faces. There's absolutely nothing wrong with living your life to the fullest as an able-bodied person. And we should not refrain from praising women who perform impressive physical feats. Simply because disabled people exist. And for what it's worth, I'm sure that the vast majority of disabled people would wholeheartedly agree with me on that. As for the post's attempted class critique, I'm going to have to disagree again. First, because being buff does not necessarily require one to have a gym membership. Second, because I'm pretty skeptical of the suggestion that these whiny fat activists are really unable to go to the gym for financial reasons, rather than being unwilling to go because they don't want to. Like, some of them might be unable to afford it. Sure, and that's unfortunate, but most likely could afford it, especially if they made it a priority. And they're just invoking class as a convenient excuse. I mean, it's not as if everyone who goes to the gym is Mr. Moneybags, haha. And third, and most importantly, other people celebrating a body type that is different to your own is not an attack on you. People are allowed to want to be thin, or muscular, or somewhere in between, and that is not a commentary on you, as a fat person, unless you choose to make it so. Sarah, yeah, instead of getting mad at other people for appreciating buff women, why not mind your own business? Radical suggestion, I know, but there it is. And finally, no, it's not fatphobic to associate worth and health with body size. In the case of health, because the two things are objectively linked. And in the case of worth, because people are entitled to their own values. If you don't want to be thin, You don't have to, nobody is forcing you, but other people are not obliged to prioritize your feelings over their own desires. They are not bigots for living their own lives, and as long as they are not bullying, insulting, or harassing you, you have no grounds for complaint. Full stop. Phew, I went on about that one. Didn't I? Oh well. I believe that this next post is by the same person who was complaining about thin people with eating disorders in my last video. Sarah, go watch that one if you want more context, I guess. Anyway, here's the continuation.
Like, I do feel for skinny people with EDs. I know what it's like to have dysmorphia and mental illness. But I'm just so sick of the way skinny people are prioritized in ED discussions. And I'm sick of the rampant fat phobia in their spaces. So many skinny people think that because they have an ED their fat phobia doesn't count, or that they're equal victims in fat phobia, but they're really not, because at the end of the day, some of us will still be praised, and prioritized, and considered the epitome of beauty, and still have all the fashion shops and trends on earth geared toward them, while the rest get stomped on, discarded, and forgotten. Fat people are always an afterthought. Just showing a fat person basic human decency is seen as an act of charity. These ED'd skinny people do not care when we are suffering, because our body shape means we deserve it. We are not equal in this fight.
Good Lord, could this person be any more pathetic? They're really out here whinging and moaning about how there aren't enough fashion shops and trends dedicated to fat people, and using this as a justification for why skinny people with EDs have it so easy, and don't deserve to complain about anything. I'm sorry, but give me a fricking break. We're talking about really serious shit here. Restrictive eating disorders are not some fun picnic, where sufferers go around feeling great about themselves, soaking in the admiration of their peers, and not having to worry about a thing. They are miserable, dangerous conditions that can ruin, and often end, lives. Having fashion trends around thinness doesn't mean squat, when the people in question are too sick to do anything with them, and feel terrible about themselves regardless. So I've got little time for the way the poster tries to sanitize this harsh reality, so as to make themselves seem more sympathetic by comparison. Also, can we tone down the hysterics a bit? Like, stomped on and discarded and forgotten, because there aren't enough fashion trends catering to you. Give me a fricking break. We're not talking about serious oppression here. We're talking about your impression that society is not making enough of an effort to tell you how hot you are. That's it. Only someone with an ego the size of a planet could possibly consider this a more important issue than the very real pain and danger that underweight ED sufferers face. And the fact that this poster feels justified in telling these people to shut up, so that they can cry about how people don't worship them as some icon of fat beauty, makes me nauseous. Like, for real, get the frick outta here. You're not being stomped on by anyone. Get a grip. So all in all, this post, and the one from yesterday, really bugged me, and I've got no time for this assumed victimhood on the part of the poster. If you don't like seeing people with EDs talk about their honest feelings, and you want a space where everyone will kiss your ass 24/7 about how sexy and amazing you are, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should leave those ED spaces alone, and make your own fat exclusive ones. Because kicking the thin or underweight sufferers of EDs out of their own communities to make room for your fat ass, sure as shit, doesn't seem fair to me. But what would I know?
Diet culture, where eating food when you have a craving is called emotional eating, but eating as little as possible, and feeling miserable, moody, and hangry because of it, isn't considered emotional at all.
Wow, what a confused little post. It gets so much wrong, in so few words, that it almost seems like it's trying to be as unconvincing as possible. Wild. First of all, emotional eating is not just eating when you have a craving. It is eating when you're bored, sad, angry, or otherwise upset, as a way of making those feelings, at least momentarily, go away. It's a very real phenomenon, especially among overweight and obese binge eaters. And it's a big contributing factor to how people are able to get as large as they do. Because having a craving doesn't compel you to eat a whole cheesecake and a tub of ice cream all in one sitting. Having a problem does. And if these fat activists, most of whom seem to be obese, and to have binging tendencies, were being honest with themselves, they would admit that their excessive eating is, in large part, a product of unresolved emotional issues. On top of that, dieting is not necessarily about eating as little as possible, nor does dieting inherently make one miserable, moody, and hangry. So presenting so-called diet culture in this way, with no qualifiers or anything, is more than a little misleading. And as for the point about how dieting is not considered emotional, I'm genuinely puzzled at the point that is being made. Like, obviously if you aren't eating, it's not emotional eating, but nobody says that dieting doesn't involve any emotion. I mean, people on diets are still human beings. Right, they still feel things, they just don't let the emotions take control, and steer them towards unwise actions. So the reason why the diet itself is not regarded as emotional is because it stands in resistance to the self-destructive impulse to binge. While just going ahead with the binge is embracing this impulse. It's really not that hard to understand what's going on here. And the way the post tries to catch people out, with what basically amounts to a stupid word game, is a sight to behold. You really would have thought that after all this time, the fat activists would have been able to come up with something slightly more convincing. But I guess not. Sighs. What a shame. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you had a swell time going through these posts with me, and that my commentary provided some insight or entertainment. What do you think? Is admiring buff chicks, ableist, classist, and fat-phobic? Are fat people stomped on, discarded, and forgotten, because they aren't put at the forefront of enough fashion trends? Is emotional eating a real thing? Or is it only dieting that can be emotional? Let me know in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, or I'll get the buffest chick I know to stomp on you. Wearing stilettos. Just kidding, haha. Anyway, catch you later.